because you've just talked there about the fight back, Helen, I think it would be good to get comments from each of you in terms of what you see as the most important actions now to begin that resistance or that response to this very retrograde step. So that could be whether you want to address those comments in the domestic US political environment, in the international arena, or in individual countries. I'm interested in your thoughts about all of those things, but I'd like to perhaps hear from each of the panelists about a bit where you think we need to start in the response. And then after that, we'll move to the questions from the viewers. So whoever is ready with an answer, please feel free to jump in.
I'm happy to go first. I think not just around the fight back as well, but for this audience, recognizing the chilling effect that these sort of conditions come both domestically and with foreign aid. And so, of course, with US aid under Republican governments, they deny the right for foreign organizations to provide safe abortion. So that's one of the reasons that IPPF or Murray Stopes won't accept money under those conditions. And of course, with PEPFAR and HIV funding with the US government, there are also restrictions in terms of the work that you can do with sex workers and in terms of their rights. So we sort of already have this context where you, for many foreign organizations, we're being asked to work against the evidence, to being asked to work against the Sustainable Development Goals. So there's always a role in terms of this fight back, in terms of what organizations can do to work to the evidence. And that matters because for abortion explicitly, we have 25 million unsafe abortions every year. The most unsafe countries for women El Salvador, Nicaragua, Poland, and now the US, because they now have the most unsafe conditions. So there's a role for all of us to play in terms of demanding that we work to some of the evidence and that we hold true to the technical guidance that comes out of multilateral organizations. And recently at the World Health Assembly, there was some technical guidance coming out around comprehensive sexuality education, etc. And for the first time, that technical guidance became very much politicized, very clearly against the evidence. And so you can see this kind of creeping into all these spaces, and that's something that we're really, really going to have to fight against. There's more to say, but I'll let others come in and more to add later. Thanks, Holly.
Holly, if I may come in there, 2 points from my side. The first is that we must applaud the governments that have come out very strongly to pass legislation that recognizes or decriminalizes abortion. Now, in African context, we have Sierra Leone that has passed the Safe Motherhood Bill. This bill decriminalizes abortion, and in one of the last segments we had at the PMNCH session, we were thrilled by the eloquence and the presentation by the Ministry of Health of Sierra Leone. Now, I mention this because government must lead, and therefore that good example of Sierra Leone must be shared and must be communicated. And I challenge the Minister for Health in Sierra Leone to say that, how do we then bring this to the Africa Union and share with other governments to adopt such kind of legislation? So really government first. Secondly, is on the locally led organizations at the grassroots level to be given support on advocacy platforms. Now, from experience, we know that most of these organizations that are community-based, locally led, especially led by the young people, girls and women, will bring in this change and transformation. So part of what we are doing is to support these local grassroots organizations and give them capacities in various forms so that they can engage with the communities and local government authorities in bringing this change. I believe that if the government is supportive and we consolidate our efforts in supporting these locally led organizations, we could make some meaningful progress. Now, it is a combination of many factors, but really, if you wanted to make a dent on this issue, we've got to support our advocacy reach, and be bold about these issues. And so that's what I can say at this point. Thank you.
And Holly, if I can step in here from, from the perspective, I think the getting governments to act on it, as Stephen said, is vitally important, and getting international bodies to live up to their, commitments that they've already put out there and have signed up to, as has already been pointed out, are really important. But fundamental in achieving that is grassroots movements of citizens pressurizing their governments and putting pressure on international institutions to do that. And that is supporting, as has been already pointed out, grassroots activists who are, creating that momentum and creating that acceptance of, bodily integrity and the rights of every individual to have, access to the full suite of sexual reproductive health and rights and services, and to make sure that that's in place. A couple of things I wanted to say that are really important in that are obviously, supporting them. And the best way that we can support them is to make sure that enough funding gets to them. Feminist movements and people, healthcare workers who are working at the front lines, who are key to providing all of these things, are the most starved for funds. We have to make sure that they get funding and get support in order to do it. Another thing that I just wanted to, a couple of points I wanted to make. One is, to me, it is a really critical moment, but a critical moment of hope, actually. It's shown that we can't take these things, as a given. It's also shown that there's a huge amount of support for it. Stephen spoke about that great example from Sierra Leone, but we also have examples from Mexico, Colombia, and Chile, who just in this last 2 years have passed sweeping, decriminalizations of abortion and rights. Mexico has done an immense job of providing services at grassroots levels. Like, you really look at that example and say, this is how it can be done, from the top right down to neighborhood provisions of access to services to all individuals and rights. The last bit, which is a little bit of a tangent, but I do think it's an important point to make, is that we can't just talk about the extreme cases where almost everybody, and I'll say almost everybody, because there's people who still say, no, the 12-year-old who was raped, shouldn't have access to abortion, which is just, absolutely astounding to me. But to make the point that it isn't just about those abortions. It's about the right of every single woman, no matter and person who needs an abortion, no matter what their circumstances, that they should have that right. And it is their decision, not anyone else's decision. There's no judgment, right? This is an uneven right, whether it is, whoever it is, and for whatever reason they're choosing to exercise that right. This full suite of sexual reproductive health and rights has to be provided to people. It has to be a part of fundamental health services, and that is the right of every individual on earth to be able to access it. So let's not just go to those extreme cases, but just to say that it is about everybody.